First story, by Emily Johnson. The wind howled through the desolate streets of Roseland, a small town tucked away in the heart of the Midwest. I had just moved there for a job opportunity, and the only place I could find on short notice was an old house at the end of Elm Street. The real estate agent had assured me it was a steal, but as I stood in front of it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The house was a relic from a bygone era, with faded paint and creaky floorboards. The windows were so grimy that it was hard to see inside. I pushed the front door open, and the hinges groaned in protest. The air inside was musty and thick, as if it had been sealed for decades. As I explored the rooms, I noticed strange markings on the walls, symbols that seemed to be etched with precision. I dismissed it as the work of the previous owner, perhaps an eccentric artist. However, as I settled in, odd occurrences became a regular part of my daily life. Late at night, I would hear footsteps in the hallway, but when I investigated, the house was empty. Objects would move on their own, doors would slam shut without warning, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of my vision. I blamed it on the old house settling, but a lingering unease clawed at the edges of my rationality. One evening, as I prepared dinner in the dimly lit kitchen, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing in the doorway. The silhouette was vague, and when I turned to face it, there was nothing there. I dismissed it as a trick of the light, but the feeling of being watched lingered. As days turned into weeks, I noticed my neighbors behaving oddly. They would huddle in small groups, casting furtive glances towards my house. I overheard snippets of whispered conversations that mentioned curses and dark rituals. It seemed the whole town believed my home was a source of malevolent energy. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows, I heard a soft chanting emanating from the streets. I peered through the curtains and saw a group of hooded figures gathered in front of my house, candles flickering in the wind. Fear gripped me, and I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the group had dispersed, leaving no trace of their sinister ceremony. Unable to shake the feeling that I was an unwitting participant in a sinister plot, I decided to investigate the symbols on the walls. With the help of a local historian, I uncovered a dark history. The house had once belonged to a secretive cult that practiced forbidden rituals. Legend had it that their leader had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a malevolent force that lingered in the walls. Terrified, I made plans to leave Roseland. As I packed my belongings, I could feel the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. As I closed the front door behind me for the last time, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching me, its dark secrets hidden in the shadows. Second story, by Daniel Carter. The sun dipped below the horizon as I navigated the narrow dirt road leading to my uncle's secluded cabin in the dense woods of Oregon. My uncle had passed away, and I inherited the cabin, a rustic retreat far from the hustle and bustle of city life. As I approached, a shiver ran down my spine, and the thick canopy of trees seemed to swallow the daylight. The cabin, surrounded by towering pines, looked like something out of a horror movie. The paint was peeling, and the windows were boarded up, giving it an eerie appearance. I hesitated for a moment but dismissed my unease as the product of an overactive imagination. Inside, the air was heavy with the musty scent of neglect. The floor creaked under my weight as I explored the dimly lit rooms. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and dust motes danced in the sparse sunlight that filtered through the cracks in the boards. As night fell, the isolation became palpable. The silence was broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. I lit a fire in the ancient fireplace, hoping the crackling flames would dispel the creeping sense of dread. That night, I was jolted awake by a strange noise. It was a rhythmic tapping, coming from the attic above. I dismissed it as the result of the wind playing tricks on the old cabin. However, as I lay there, the tapping grew louder, evolving into a series of distinct knocks. Unable to ignore it any longer, I grabbed a flashlight and cautiously ascended the creaky staircase. The attic door groaned open, revealing a space filled with dusty relics from years gone by. As I scanned the room, the tapping ceased, and an eerie silence settled over the cabin. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences intensified. Objects moved on their own, and I would catch glimpses of shadowy figures in the corners of my vision. The cabin seemed to come alive with whispered voices that echoed through the empty rooms. My unease turned into a constant state of paranoia. One stormy night, as the rain lashed against the cabin, I discovered a hidden compartment in the attic floor. Inside, I found a collection of old photographs and a tattered journal that chronicled my uncle's descent into madness. He had become obsessed with a local legend of a malevolent spirit that haunted the woods, claiming the souls of those who dared to trespass on its territory. As I delved deeper into the journal, I realized that my uncle had attempted to communicate with the spirit through dark rituals. The tapping in the attic, the whispers in the night, it was all connected to the malevolent force that lingered in the shadows. Terrified, I made the decision to leave the cabin. As I packed my belongings, the air seemed to thicken with an oppressive energy. The tapping in the attic grew louder, and the shadows danced with malevolence. As I stepped out into the night, the cabin behind me seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, its secrets locked away in the heart of the dark woods. Third Story, by Samantha Miller. The small town of Rocksville, nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, was known for its picturesque landscapes and tight-knit community. My job had brought me there, and I found a charming old house on the outskirts of town that I thought would be the perfect place to settle down. The house stood at the end of a narrow, winding lane surrounded by dense woods. Its faded red paint and Victorian architecture exuded an old-world charm. However, as I moved in, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The first odd occurrence happened one night as I was unpacking boxes in the living room. I heard a soft whisper, like a distant conversation carried on the wind. I dismissed it as the product of fatigue and stress from the move, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent as the days went by. One evening, as I strolled through the quaint town, I noticed the locals casting wary glances in my direction. The whispers grew louder, turning into hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when I approached. It was as if the town had a secret, and I was an outsider who had stumbled upon it. Back at the house, strange phenomena became a regular occurrence. The lights flickered, and the temperature in the room would drop inexplicably. I found old photographs hidden in the attic, faces scratched out with malicious intent. It seemed that the house held a dark history that the townspeople were reluctant to share. One night, unable to sleep, I ventured into the woods behind the house. As I walked deeper into the darkness, the whispers intensified. It was as if the very trees were speaking to me, their ancient voices echoing through the stillness of the night. I stumbled upon an old cemetery hidden among the trees, the gravestones weathered and worn. The names on the gravestones matched those in the old photographs I had found. It was a chilling realization that the spirits of the past were reaching out, their unfinished business tethered to the house I now called home. The townspeople, it seemed, were haunted by the sins of their ancestors. As I delved into the town's history, I discovered a dark secret. The house had once belonged to a family accused of practicing witchcraft, and the townspeople, in a fit of hysteria, had driven them out. The whispers were the cries of the wronged, seeking justice for the sins committed against them. Terrified, I confronted the townspeople with my findings, but they remained tight-lipped, their eyes filled with a mix of fear and guilt. The whispers in the house grew louder, the spirits demanding retribution for the wrongs committed against them. In the dead of night, I packed my bags, leaving Rocksville behind. As I drove away, the whispers faded, and the oppressive weight lifted. The old house stood in the rearview mirror, a silent witness to the dark secrets buried within the mountains. Fourth Story, by Thomas Anderson. I moved to the coastal town of Harbor Haven seeking solace after a messy divorce. The only place I could find on short notice was a dilapidated cabin at the edge of a dense forest. The cabin, with its peeling paint and overgrown garden, exuded a sense of abandonment. However, I craved isolation, and the remote location seemed perfect for healing my wounded soul. As I settled into the cabin, I noticed peculiar occurrences that heightened my unease. The forest that surrounded me seemed to come alive with strange sounds at night, eerie whispers that danced on the wind. Initially, I chalked it up to the rustling of leaves or the distant calls of nocturnal creatures, but as the days passed, the whispers took on a distinct, human-like quality. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I decided to explore the woods. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the forest seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Strange symbols were etched into the trees, and an ominous fog clung to the ground, distorting the shadows. As I ventured deeper, I stumbled upon a clearing where a group of hooded figures stood in a circle, chanting in an ancient language. Fear gripped me, and I hid behind a tree, watching in horror as they performed a ritual that seemed to beckon to forces beyond human comprehension. The whispers in the wind intensified, as if the forest itself were responding to their dark incantations. The following nights were filled with nightmares. I would wake in a cold sweat, the echoes of the ritual haunting my dreams. The cabin, once a haven, now felt like a prison as the whispers followed me indoors. Shadows danced on the walls, and the air seemed to hum with a malevolent energy. Desperate for answers, I sought out the town's elderly historian, hoping to uncover the dark secrets that lingered in the forest. She spoke of a long-forgotten cult that had once called the woods home, practicing forbidden rituals to commune with ancient entities. The cabin, she explained, was built atop an ancient burial ground, and the spirits of the past were restless. Armed with this knowledge, I confronted the hooded figures in the forest. They turned to face me, their eyes hollow and devoid of humanity. The leader, a figure cloaked in darkness, spoke in a voice that echoed with the weight of centuries. He revealed that my presence had awakened the spirits, and they demanded a sacrifice to appease their wrath. Terrified, I fled back to the cabin, pursued by the whispers and the ominous figures. As I barricaded myself inside, the air became suffocating, and the walls seemed to close in. The hooded figures surrounded the cabin, their chanting growing louder and more insistent. In a desperate bid to escape, I gathered my belongings and fled into the night. The forest seemed to swallow me whole, its ancient trees towering above like silent sentinels. The whispers faded, and the hooded figures receded into the shadows. As I reached the outskirts of Harbor Haven, the weight on my shoulders lifted. The dark energy that had gripped the cabin was replaced by the cool breeze of the ocean. I never looked back, but the haunting whispers lingered in the recesses of my mind, a reminder that some secrets are better left undisturbed. Fifth story, by Olivia Carter. The town of Hollow Creek, nestled in the heart of the Smoky Mountains, was known for its historic charm and welcoming community. Intrigued by the quaint beauty of the area, I decided to spend a summer in a century-old house that I rented from a local family. Little did I know, the house held a secret that would unravel the tranquility of the town. The house, with its wraparound porch and faded blue shutters, seemed like the perfect retreat. As I settled in, I couldn't help but notice the peculiar behavior of the neighbors. They would exchange hushed conversations and cast wary glances at the house when they thought I wasn't looking. The atmosphere in the town was charged with an unspoken tension that left me on edge. Late one night, as a thunderstorm rolled in, I heard a soft tapping on the windows. I dismissed it as a branch in the wind, but the tapping persisted, taking on a rhythmic quality. Cautiously, I approached the window and was met with the sight of a young girl, her eyes wide with desperation, tapping on the glass. Unable to ignore her plea, I opened the window, and she spoke in hurried whispers about a hidden room in the basement. She claimed that the house held a dark secret, a secret that the townspeople were desperate to keep buried. Intrigued and uneasy, I followed her directions and discovered a hidden door behind a dusty bookshelf. As I descended into the dimly lit basement, the air grew thick with a palpable energy. The room, adorned with strange symbols, seemed frozen in time. It became evident that this was a place of ritual, a place where unspeakable acts had transpired. The girl, her name revealed as Emily, shared the tale of a cult that had once inhabited Hollow Creek, performing dark ceremonies to appease an ancient entity. The townspeople, fearing the malevolent force that lingered, sealed the cult's secrets away, hoping to erase the darkness from their history. As the days passed, I delved deeper into the town's archives, uncovering newspaper clippings and faded photographs that depicted the cult's presence in chilling detail. The townspeople, it seemed, were haunted by the sins of their ancestors, and the girl, Emily, was a restless spirit seeking redemption. The more I unearthed, the more the town turned against me. Whispers followed me wherever I went, accusing glares from the locals intensifying. I realized that by uncovering the truth, I had become a threat to the delicate balance that the town had maintained for decades. One night, as I wandered through the historic cemetery, the shadows seemed to come alive with the restless spirits of the past. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy, and Emily appeared before me, her eyes pleading for release. The ancient entity, angered by my interference, seemed to cast a shadow over the town. Terrified for my safety, I made the decision to leave Hollow Creek. As I drove away, the storm that had been brewing over the town unleashed its fury. Lightning danced across the sky, and the wind carried the echoes of the town's secrets. The ancient entity, denied its revenge, faded into the darkness, leaving behind a town haunted by the sins of its past. Sixth story, by Christopher Harris. I found myself drawn to the small town of Ravensbrook in upstate New York, a place shrouded in mystery and surrounded by dense forests eager for a change of scenery. I purchased an old Victorian house at the end of Maple Street, unaware of the dark history that lurked within its walls. The house, with its imposing architecture and overgrown garden, had an eerie charm that captured my imagination. As I settled in, I noticed the peculiar behavior of the neighbors. They would watch me from behind their curtains, exchanging furtive glances when they thought I wasn't looking. The town seemed to harbor a collective secret, one that left me with a sense of unease. Late one night, as I explored the dimly lit corridors of the house, I stumbled upon a hidden door in the attic. Behind it lay a narrow staircase that led down to a basement I hadn't known existed. The air in the basement was heavy with a musty odor, and the flickering light bulb overhead cast long shadows on the cold, damp walls. As I ventured deeper into the darkness, I discovered a series of interconnected tunnels, each leading to a different part of the town. It became apparent that the tunnels were a network of hidden passages, and the house was at the center of it all. It seemed that the town's secrets were woven into the very fabric of the architecture. Intrigued, I delved into the history of Ravensbrook and uncovered tales of a secret society that had once ruled the town with an iron fist. The society, known as the Veiled Order, operated in the shadows, manipulating the course of Ravensbrook's history for centuries. Their influence reached into every corner of the town, and their rituals were said to invoke dark forces beyond human understanding. As I unraveled the threads of this twisted tapestry, strange occurrences within the house intensified. Whispers echoed through the halls, and shadows seemed to move of their own accord. The townspeople, aware of my discoveries, became increasingly hostile, their fear turning into a palpable aggression. One fateful night, as I explored the tunnels beneath the house, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber where the Veiled Order conducted their rituals. The air crackled with dark energy, and the walls were adorned with symbols that seemed to pulsate with malevolence. The members of the Order, cloaked in hooded robes, turned to face me with eyes that gleamed with an otherworldly light. They accused me of trespassing into their realm, threatening to unleash forces beyond my comprehension. Desperate to escape, I raced through the twisting tunnels, the echoes of their chants following me. As I emerged into the night, I could feel the weight of the town's secrets pressing down on me. In the days that followed, I became a pariah in Ravensbrook. The whispers grew louder, accusing me of disrupting the delicate balance that had kept the town under the control of the Veiled Order. Fearing for my safety, I made the decision to leave, but the shadows of Ravensbrook seemed to cling to me. As I drove away from the town, the Victorian house stood in the rearview mirror, a silent sentinel guarding the dark secrets hidden within its walls. The tunnels beneath, now sealed by the Order, seemed to echo with the whispers of a town haunted by a history that refused to be forgotten. Seventh Story, by Rachel Turner. I found myself in the quiet town of Cedar Ridge, nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. The house I rented, a quaint cabin surrounded by towering pines, seemed like the perfect escape from the noise of the city. Little did I know, the woods held a secret that would unravel the tranquility of my new life. The cabin, with its rustic charm and creaking floorboards, felt like a sanctuary at first. However, as night fell, a strange energy seemed to envelop the woods. It started with subtle noises, the crackling of branches, the rustling of leaves. I attributed it to the wildlife, but the feeling of being watched lingered in the shadows. One moonlit night, as I sat by the fireplace, a soft tapping on the window caught my attention. I approached cautiously, expecting to find a stray animal, but instead, I was met with the reflection of a woman in a tattered white gown. Her eyes were vacant, and she beckoned for me to follow. Fear gripped me, but curiosity compelled me to venture into the woods. The woman, a ghostly figure named Amelia, led me to an old cemetery hidden among the trees. The gravestones, weathered and worn, revealed the tragic tale of a family that had once lived in the cabin. They had been accused of witchcraft and driven out of the town, leaving behind a legacy of sorrow. As Amelia spoke in whispers, the wind carried the echoes of the family's story. It seemed the spirits of the past were trapped in a cycle of torment, seeking justice for the injustice committed against them. The cabin, it turned out, was a focal point for their restless souls. As days turned into weeks, the paranormal activity within the cabin escalated. Objects moved on their own, and the air crackled with an otherworldly energy. The townspeople, aware of my connection to the spirits, regarded me with a mixture of pity and fear. They warned me to leave before the vengeful entities consumed my soul. Determined to help the spirits find peace, I delved into the town's archives, uncovering a dark history of witch trials and persecution. The family that had once lived in the cabin had been innocent victims of the hysteria that gripped Cedar Ridge. The whispers in the woods grew louder, guiding me to a hidden chamber beneath the cabin. In the chamber, I found a series of symbols etched into the walls, a language of the supernatural that bound the spirits to the earthly realm. With the help of a local medium, I attempted to communicate with the ghosts, seeking a way to break the curse that held them captive. One stormy night, as the wind howled through the trees, we performed a ritual to free the spirits. The air in the cabin thickened, and the temperature dropped as the ghosts manifested before us. They spoke of their longing for release and forgiveness. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light filled the cabin, and the spirits ascended, leaving behind a sense of peace that settled over the woods. The symbols in the chamber faded, and the oppressive energy lifted. Cedar Ridge, once haunted by a tragic history, now felt serene. In the aftermath, the townspeople regarded me with a newfound respect. The cabin, once a place of sorrow, became a symbol of redemption. As I drove away from Cedar Ridge, I couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits, grateful for their liberation, watched over the town with a benevolent gaze. The chapter of darkness in the cabin's history had finally come to a close. 8th Story, by Andrew Thompson. Nestled in the heart of the Colorado Rockies, the town of Whispering Pines was known for its breathtaking scenery and a sense of isolation. It was here that I decided to spend my sabbatical in a cabin that had been in my family for generations. Little did I know that the tranquility of the mountains held a secret that would shatter the peace I sought. The cabin, weathered by years of mountain storms, stood on the edge of a dense forest. As I settled in, I became aware of a soft hum that permeated the air, an ethereal melody that seemed to dance on the wind. The townspeople, friendly yet reserved, spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid to disturb the delicate balance between the living and the unknown. One night, as I sat on the porch, captivated by the starry sky, I noticed a figure standing at the edge of the forest. Silhouetted against the moonlight, it seemed to be a woman, her long hair flowing in the mountain breeze. Intrigued, I approached, but she vanished into the shadows, leaving behind the haunting echo of her laughter. In the days that followed, I delved into the town's history, uncovering tales of a legendary figure known as the Mountain Muse. It was said that she was a spirit of the mountains, a guardian of the natural balance. The hum in the air, the townspeople whispered, was her song that connected the living to the ancient spirits of the Rockies. As I ventured deeper into the forest, guided by the ethereal melody, I stumbled upon an ancient shrine hidden among the trees. The shrine, adorned with offerings left by the townspeople, seemed to emanate a mystical energy. It became clear that the Mountain Muse was more than a legend. She was a force that bound the town to the ancient spirits. However, the delicate balance was disrupted as developers sought to exploit the beauty of the Rockies. The hum in the air turned into a mournful dirge, and the Mountain Muse appeared to me in a vision, her eyes filled with sorrow. The spirits of the mountains, angered by the intrusion, sought retribution. As I tried to mediate between the townspeople and the spirits, the air grew thick with tension. Shadows danced on the edges of my vision, and the hum became a mournful wail that echoed through the mountains. The developers, blinded by greed, refused to heed the warning signs, pushing the town to the brink of a supernatural confrontation. One fateful night, as the spirits unleashed their fury, a storm descended on Whispering Pines. Lightning struck the developers' machinery, and the mountain muse appeared before them, her form towering like a guardian of nature's wrath. The townspeople, realizing the consequences of their actions, joined me in a ritual to appease the ancient spirits. As the final notes of the mountain muse's song echoed through the mountains, the storm subsided, and a sense of calm settled over Whispering Pines. The developers, humbled by the supernatural intervention, abandoned their plans, and the town returned to its quiet serenity. As I left the mountains behind, the hum in the air seemed to resonate with gratitude. The mountain muse, her presence lingering in the wind, had restored the delicate balance between the living and the ancient spirits. The Rockies stood as a testament to the enduring power of nature, and the town of Whispering Pines embraced its role as a guardian of the mountain's secrets. Ninth Story, by Catherine Evans. The town of Shadowbrook, located on the outskirts of the Ozark Mountains, was a place forgotten by time. Intrigued by its rich history and charming architecture, I decided to spend a summer in an old mansion that had been converted into a bed and breakfast. Little did I know, the elegant facade concealed the darkness that would envelop me in a web of chilling secrets. The mansion, with its grandiose Victorian design and overgrown gardens, seemed frozen in the past. As I settled in, I was captivated by the antique furniture and the faded portraits that adorned the walls. However, the air in the mansion carried a weight, a sense of lingering despair that left me uneasy. One night, as I explored the labyrinthine halls, I stumbled upon a locked door in the attic. Intrigued, I searched for the key and, to my surprise, found it in a dusty drawer. The door creaked open, revealing a room filled with old books and arcane symbols etched into the floor. It became evident that the mansion held a secret that went beyond its elegant exterior. As I delved into the town's archives, I uncovered tales of a cult that had once thrived in Shadowbrook, practicing dark rituals to summon otherworldly entities. The mansion, it seemed, was a focal point for their activities. The cult, driven by a thirst for power, had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind a legacy of malevolence. Strange occurrences within the mansion escalated. Whispers echoed through the halls, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of my vision. The townspeople, aware of my presence in the mansion, regarded me with a mix of pity and fear. It was as if the cult's dark influence had permeated the very walls. Driven by a need to unravel the mysteries of the mansion, I conducted a séance in the room I had discovered. As I called out to the spirits, the air thickened with an otherworldly energy, and the symbols on the floor seemed to pulse with malevolence. A spectral figure emerged, its eyes filled with a haunting sadness. The spirit, a former member of the cult, revealed the gruesome history that had unfolded within the mansion's walls. The cult had sought to harness forbidden powers, but their experiments had unleashed a malevolent force that consumed them. The spirits of the cult members, trapped in the mansion, sought release from their eternal torment. Haunted by the revelations, I worked to free the trapped spirits. With the help of a local medium, we performed a ritual to break the curse that bound them to the mansion. As the ritual reached its climax, the air crackled with energy, and the spirits ascended, leaving behind a profound stillness. In the aftermath, the mansion stood as a solemn monument to the town's dark history. The townspeople, grateful for the release of the trapped spirits, regarded me with a mix of awe and gratitude. As I left Shadowbrook behind, I couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion, now devoid of the malevolent presence, stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit against the shadows of the past. 10th Story, by Jessica Martin. Nestled in the rolling hills of West Virginia, the town of Black Hollow held a history steeped in folklore and mystery. Seeking a retreat from the chaos of city life, I decided to spend a winter in an old farmhouse that had been in my family for generations. Little did I know, the isolation of Black Hollow harbored secrets that would awaken a primal fear within me. The farmhouse, with its time-worn exterior and a rusty weather vane that creaked in the wind, exuded an air of antiquity. As I settled in, the biting chill of the winter air seemed to penetrate the very bones of the farmhouse. Shadows danced in the corners of the rooms, and strange noises echoed through the halls, creating an unsettling atmosphere. One evening, as I stoked the fireplace in an attempt to ward off the cold, I heard a soft scratching at the door. Curiosity overcoming caution, I opened it to find a pack of stray dogs huddled on the porch. They had an otherworldly gleam in their eyes, and as I looked deeper into the darkness beyond, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the edge of the woods. The figure, cloaked in tattered garments, vanished into the night, leaving behind an inexplicable sense of dread. The townspeople, when questioned, spoke in cryptic riddles, warning me of the Wendigo, a mythical creature said to stalk the winter nights, hungry for the warmth of the living. As the days turned to weeks, the farmhouse seemed to come alive with an unnatural energy. The temperature in the rooms would drop suddenly, and the walls groaned as if bearing the weight of a hidden presence. The stray dogs, now frequent visitors, howled mournfully at the moon, their eyes reflecting a primal fear that mirrored my own. Driven by a need to understand the supernatural occurrences, I delved into the town's folklore. The Wendigo, it seemed, was a manifestation of the town's darkest fears, a creature born from the desperation and hunger that had haunted Black Hollow during a harsh winter centuries ago. The farmhouse, an ancient dwelling with ties to the town's past, had become a focal point for the Wendigo's malevolence. One night, as the snow fell in thick flakes, I ventured into the woods, guided by an inexplicable force. The shadows seemed to close in, and the air was thick with an eerie silence. I stumbled upon an ancient burial ground, the graves marked with weathered symbols that hinted at a forbidden pact with the supernatural. As I stood in the midst of the graveyard, the figure I had glimpsed before materialized before me. The Wendigo, its eyes ablaze with an otherworldly hunger, lunged forward. Fear gripped me, but instead of an attack, the creature let out a mournful wail, a cry that echoed with centuries of loneliness and torment. In that moment, I realized that the Wendigo was not a malevolent force but a trapped spirit, cursed to wander the winter nights in search of companionship. The stray dogs, once the victims of the creature's terror, were now its loyal guardians, bound by an unspoken understanding. With a heavy heart, I performed a ritual to free the Wendigo's spirit from its eternal torment. As the ceremony unfolded, the air crackled with energy, and the figure before me began to dissipate like mist in the wind. The snowfall ceased, and a profound stillness settled over the woods. As I returned to the farmhouse, the atmosphere had transformed. The temperature rose, and the shadows receded. The stray dogs, now mere mortal canines, wagged their tails in gratitude. The farmhouse, once haunted by the specter of the Wendigo, stood as a testament to the power of understanding and compassion in the face of ancient fears. As I left Black Hollow behind, the winter landscape seemed to thaw with the warmth of newfound understanding. The town's folklore, no longer a source of dread, became a tapestry that connected the present to a past steeped in myth and mystery. The farmhouse, now bathed in the soft glow of a winter sunrise, held the echoes of a once-forgotten legend, a story of transformation and redemption in the heart of the West Virginia hills. Thank you for sticking with us through the whole video. Also, I recommend you this video you see on screen, one of the scariest on my channel. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. This helps me bring you more thrilling content every day. If this video sent shivers down your spine, let me know in the comments.